Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some really cutting-edge research on nerve regeneration.
Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
You've got a fascinating article from Nature Communications,
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
as reported by Medical Xpress just a few days ago on February 24th, 2025, and it focuses on Schwann cells
Right.
and a protein called HDAC8, which turns out to play a pretty unexpected role in the whole process.
Yeah, definitely unexpected.
So for those of you who maybe haven't thought about this in a while, could you maybe set the stage for us and remind us why this whole nerve regeneration thing is so important?
Well, I mean, think about it this way.
Yeah.
Our nervous system is like the communication network of our body, right? It's how our brain talks to our muscles, our organs, everything.
Right. Keeps everything running.
And when that network gets damaged, like from an injury, things can go haywire.
Absolutely. And it happens more than we probably realize, right? I mean, everything from something as simple as a pinched nerve
Oh, yeah.
to more serious injuries.
Definitely. So understanding how nerves regenerate, how they repair themselves after injury
Yeah.
is absolutely crucial for developing new treatments and therapies for all sorts of conditions.
It's amazing how much our bodies can actually repair themselves. I think we often take that for granted.
We do. It's an incredible process. And the more we learn about it, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
Right. This article describes Schwann cells as quick change artists, which is a great way to put it.
It is.
Could you remind us what these cells do and why they're so important?
Well, basically, Schwann cells are like the caretakers of our nerves.
Interesting.
They have this really important job of forming the myelin sheath,
Right, the myelin sheath.
which is that protective layer around the nerve axons that helps transmit signals quickly and efficiently.
Okay, so they're like insulators for the nervous system.
Exactly. They help make sure those signals get where they need to go without any interference.
Like the insulation on a wire?
Yeah, exactly. But that's not all they do.
Oh,
These Schwann cells are pretty amazing. When a nerve gets injured, they can actually transform themselves into repair cells.
wow, that's cool. I mean, that's really remarkable.
Right. It's like they have this built-in first aid kit.
They do.
So these repair cells, they release these special proteins called neurotrophins,
Okay, I've heard of those.
and those act like guides,
Yeah.
helping the damaged axons regrow and reconnect with their targets.
So they're like the medics, A&D, the engineers of the nervous system.
Huh. That's a great way to put it.
It's incredible how adaptable they are.
It really is a remarkable process.
So we've got this incredible repair system in place, but it's not always perfect, right? The article mentioned that this regeneration process is particularly efficient in young individuals.
Yeah, younger nerves are definitely more resilient.
But it seems like things get a bit more complicated as we age. Why is that? What changes?
Well, one of the big challenges is that as we get older, our cells just don't regenerate as quickly or as efficiently.
Oh,
It's like anything else, things start to wear out a bit.
wow.
Another factor is that when there are larger gaps between the damaged axon and its target,
Okay.
it's just harder for those axons to regrow and make those connections.
It's like trying to build a bridge across a wider river.
Exactly. It's a much bigger challenge, and that can lead to incomplete reinnervation.
Right, where the nerve doesn't fully reconnect.
Yeah, and that can result in a loss of function.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not just about age, it's also about the extent of the damage.
Exactly. Both of those factors play a role.
Okay, so that's where this new research on HDAC8 comes in, right? This protein seems to be throwing a wrench into the works.
Oh, it's definitely shaking things up a bit, I'll tell you.
Yeah, so what did they find out about it?
Well, it turns out that HDAC8 is a protein that's found specifically in Schwann cells.
Okay.
But here's the catch. It's only in the Schwann cells that surround sensory neurons.
So the ones involved in touch, temperature, pain, that kind of...
You got it. And what they discovered is that HDAC8 actually slows down the transformation of those Schwann cells into repair mode.
Whoa, wait a minute. So there's a built-in braking system on the healing process.
That's exactly what it looks like.
What? Why would that be?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It was definitely a surprising finding.
It's like our bodies are choosing to slow down the repair of certain types of nerves.
Yeah, and we don't really know why yet.
But not others, right?
Yeah.
It's not happening with the motor Schwann cells.
Exactly, the ones responsible for movement, they don't seem to be affected in the same way.
So we've got this selective braking system in place for sensory nerves.
That's what the research is suggesting.
And that raises a whole bunch of questions, doesn't it? Like, what's the reason for this selectivity?
Right.
Why slow down the repair of sensory nerves, but not motor nerves?
It's a puzzle for sure. But it's a fascinating one, and it could have some really important implications for how we approach nerve regeneration therapies in the future.
I mean, if we can figure out why this is happening,
Right.
maybe we can manipulate it to our advantage, right? Speed up the repair process when we need to.
Possibly, but we need to be careful. We don't want to mess with something that might be important for some other reason that we don't understand yet.
Right. It's like we need to learn the rules of the game before we start changing them.
Exactly. We need to understand the why before we start messing with the how.
So instead of just focusing on speeding up the repair process, maybe we need to shift our attention to understanding why this slowdown exists in the first place.
Absolutely. I think that's the key takeaway from this research. It's not just about finding ways to accelerate healing, it's about understanding the intricate mechanisms that control it.
And HDAC8 seems to be right at the heart of that.
It's a tiny protein with a potentially huge impact.
I'm really curious to see where this research goes next.
Me too. This is definitely a story we'll be keeping an eye on.
All right, we'll stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into HDAC8 and nerve regeneration. We'll be back after a short break.
So before the break, we were talking about this braking system that seems to be in place for sensory nerve repair.
Right, specifically the role of HDAC8 in slowing down that process. And we were starting to get into some of the questions that this raises, right? Like, why would our bodies have this mechanism in place?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
It is. I mean, if we think about it from an evolutionary perspective,
Yeah.
you would think that faster healing would always be advantageous.
Yeah, you'd think so, but clearly there's something else going on here.
Right, because it seems like the slowdown is very deliberate. It's not just a random glitch.
Exactly, and that suggests that it might serve some purpose that we don't yet fully understand.
So what are some of the theories out there? What could be the reason for this selective braking system on sensory nerve repair?
Well, one possibility is that it has something to do with the way sensory nerves regenerate.
Okay, how so?
Well, unlike motor nerves, which tend to regrow in a more orderly fashion,
Yeah.
sensory nerves can sometimes regenerate in a bit of a chaotic way.
Chaotic.
Yeah, they might sprout axons in all sorts of directions.
Okay.
And that can lead to problems like pain or sensitivity issues.
I see. So maybe this slowdown is a way of preventing that kind of uncontrolled regrowth.
Exactly. It could be a way of ensuring that the regeneration process happens in a more controlled and organized manner.
So it's like a quality control mechanism.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. It's like the body is saying, hey, let's take our time here and make sure we do this right.
Instead of just rushing to get the job done.
Exactly, because sometimes a quick fix isn't necessarily the best fix.
Makes sense. So that's one theory. Another one we touched on before the break is the connection between HDAC8 and the body's response to hypoxia.
Right. That's another intriguing possibility.
Could you remind us what hypoxia is and why it's relevant here?
Sure. So hypoxia basically means a lack of oxygen.
Okay.
And it's a common occurrence after an injury because the blood supply to the area is often disrupted.
Right, that makes sense.
And when tissues are deprived of oxygen, it triggers a whole cascade of events.
Like what kind of events?
Well, one of the key things that happens is the formation of new blood vessels.
Angiogenesis.
Yes, exactly. The body is trying to restore blood flow to the injured area and bring in oxygen and nutrients to help with the healing process.
Okay, so where does HDAC8 fit into all of this?
Well, what's interesting is that HDAC8 might actually be playing a role in regulating this process of blood vessel formation.
Really? So it's not just about slowing down nerve regeneration. It might also be involved in controlling the growth of new blood vessels.
That's what the research is suggesting. And that could explain why it's specifically found in sensory Schwann cells.
Because sensory nerves are particularly vulnerable to hypoxia after an injury.
Exactly. They rely heavily on a constant supply of oxygen.
So maybe HDAC8 is part of a broader mechanism that helps to coordinate the healing process.
That's one possibility. It's like the body is trying to strike a balance between nerve regeneration and blood vessel formation.
Making sure both processes happen in sync.
Right, because if you have too much nerve regeneration without enough blood vessel growth,
Yeah.
those new nerves might not have the oxygen they need to survive.
And on the flip side, if you have too much blood vessel growth without enough nerve regeneration, you might end up with a lot of blood vessels that aren't actually connected to anything useful.
Exactly. So it seems like HDAC8 might be playing a key role in ensuring that these two processes are properly coordinated.
It's like a conductor making sure all the different sections of the orchestra are playing in harmony.
Ha, I like that analogy.
So this connection between HDAC8 hypoxia and blood vessel formation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it opens up a whole new way of thinking about this research, right?
Absolutely. It suggests that HDAC8 might be a much more versatile player than we initially thought.
It's not just about nerve regeneration. It's about tissue repair and regeneration in general.
And that could have implications for a wide range of conditions beyond just nerve injuries.
So we're talking about things like chronic wounds, where blood flow is often impaired.
Exactly. And even conditions like stroke or heart disease, where restoring blood flow to damaged tissues is crucial.
It's amazing to think that a discovery that started with a focus on nerve regeneration could potentially lead to breakthroughs in so many other areas of medicine.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of biological systems and the importance of basic scientific research.
Because you never know where a new discovery might lead.
That's the beauty of science. It's a constant journey of exploration and discovery.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see where this particular journey takes us.
Me too. This is just the beginning of what promises to be a very fascinating story.
All right, so we've talked about some of the potential reasons for this HDAC8 braking system.
Right.
But the big question is, what can we do with this information? Can we actually manipulate HDAC8 to our advantage?
Well, that's what researchers are now trying to figure out.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if we can figure out how to control this HDAC8 activity,
Right.
we might be able to actually accelerate nerve regeneration when we need to.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal, right? To develop therapies that can help people recover from nerve injuries more quickly and more completely.
So are there any promising avenues of research in that area?
There are actually several approaches that researchers are exploring.
Like what, for example?
Well, one approach is to develop drugs that can specifically inhibit HDAC8 activity.
So basically block its action.
Yeah, exactly. And there are already some HDAC inhibitors out there
Oh, really?
that are being used for other conditions.
Wow.
So the challenge is to find ones that are safe and effective for targeting HDAC8 specifically in the context of nerve regeneration.
And that's not always easy, right? I mean,
Sure.
drugs can have all sorts of unintended effects.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
That's one of the big challenges in drug development, finding that sweet spot where you're getting the desired effect without causing a whole bunch of other problems.
So it's like trying to hit a bullseye with a dart.
Yeah, pretty much. And sometimes it feels like you're throwing that dart in the dark.
Right, because our bodies are so complex.
Exactly. There are so many interconnected pathways and feedback loops that it's hard to predict how a drug will behave once it's in the system.
So it's not just about finding a drug that targets HDAC8. It's about understanding the whole network of interactions that HDAC8 is involved in.
Absolutely. And that requires a lot of careful research and testing.
So drug development is one approach.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other avenues that researchers are exploring?
Well, another really promising area is gene therapy.
Oh, wow. That sounds pretty high-tech.
It is, but it's actually becoming more and more feasible as our understanding of genetics and gene editing techniques advances.
So how would gene therapy work in this context?
Well, the idea is to either increase or decrease HDAC8 production in specific cells.
So you could either boost it or knock it down, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly, and the way you do that is by using a viral vector.
A virus.
Yeah, but don't worry, it's a modified virus that's been engineered to be safe.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Basically, this viral vector carries the genetic instructions for either increasing or decreasing HDAC8 production.
And it delivers those instructions directly to the cells you're targeting.
Yeah, it's like a tiny little postal worker delivering a very specific message.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And then once those cells receive the message, they start producing more or less HDAC8, depending on what the instructions say.
That's the idea, and the hope is that by manipulating HDAC8 levels in this way, we can fine-tune the nerve regeneration process.
That's incredible. I mean, it's like we're hacking into the body's own repair system.
Yeah, in a way, that's exactly what we're doing, and it has the potential to be incredibly powerful.
So we've got drug development and gene therapy. What other tools are in the toolbox?
Well, another really exciting area of research is biomaterials.
Biomaterials. What are those?
Basically, biomaterials are materials that are designed to interact with biological systems.
Okay.
They can be made from a variety of substances, like polymers, ceramics, metals, even living cells.
Wow, so it's like a whole new world of material science.
It is, and it's opening up all sorts of possibilities for regenerative medicine.
So how are biomaterials being used in the context of nerve regeneration?
Well, one of the key applications is to create scaffolds or bridges to help damaged nerves reconnect.
Like literally building a bridge across the gap between the severed ends of a nerve.
Yeah, exactly. And these scaffolds can be designed to provide structural support for the regenerating axons.
So they're like little highways for the nerves to follow.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And they can also be infused with growth factors or other molecules that can help to stimulate nerve regeneration.
So it's not just about providing structural support, it's also about creating a favorable environment for the nerves to grow and reconnect.
Right. It's like giving those nerves a little extra help along the way.
And these biomaterials, they can be implanted into the body.
Right. Yeah, they're designed to be biocompatible, meaning that they won't be rejected by the body's immune system.
That's crucial. And the last thing you want is for your body to attack the very thing that's supposed to be helping it heal.
Exactly. So a lot of research goes into making sure that these biomaterials are safe and effective.
It sounds like biomaterials are a really versatile tool for regenerative medicine. I mean, they could potentially be used for all sorts of applications.
Oh, absolutely. They're already being used for things like bone and cartilage repair.
Yeah.
And there's growing interest in using them for wound healing and even organ regeneration.
It's amazing to think about the possibilities. It's like we're entering a whole new era of medicine where we can actually rebuild and repair damaged tissues.
It's an exciting time to be in this field for sure.
Well, it's certainly been an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot about HDAC8 and its potential to revolutionize the way we approach nerve regeneration.
Me too. It's always fascinating to delve into the latest research and see how our understanding of the body is constantly evolving.
And I think this research really highlights the importance of supporting basic science.
Oh, absolutely, because you never know what amazing discoveries are just waiting to be made.
Sometimes the most groundbreaking breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places.
That's the beauty of science. It's full of surprises, and that's what keeps it so exciting.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of HDAC8 and nerve regeneration. Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.